From the novel by Paula Sender, Progeny, available on Amazon and in leading bookstores.
Progeny, Episode 1. Visum.
Summer 1967. In aqua ad ostium perveni, ubi mors oritur. I read before going up to secure the jams, which were banging on the glass furiously. The wind strangely blew in convulsive gusts, so I went up to check the crackling balcony, then rushed to the windows and closed the shutters. I descended slowly, leaning against the balustrade, into the dusty dining room, picked up the document again, and pondered for a few minutes what Marsilio Ficino had meant by that interrupted sentence in Latin. It was the last letter to Giorgio Antonio Vespucci, written while he was a guest of the Medici, dated 8th November 1494. The day before the ousting of the Florentine lords by Savonarola, which would explain, I said to myself, the strangely heartfelt tone of those words, but I could think of nothing deadly that could arise from the door in the water. Perhaps a reference to some ravine in Villa Careggi, whose gardens were once fed by a stream, or more likely a place he should not have gone. Earlier that year, during a restoration in the Medici villa, an epistolary by Ficino, written between 1492 and 1494, had surfaced as a commentary on De Fabula. This was considered his testamentary work by many unacknowledged. I remember being struck by the calligraphy, elegant with elongated T's like L's and flattened O's like circles. The sensational discovery had enthralled several universities, but only Barnard, professor of cultural anthropology and philosophy of language at the Libera Universitas, was the first to secure the exclusive right to examine it, which he entrusted to me.
"Can't you learn more, Baldi?"
the professor asked me. The door in the water where death rises, it seems a paradox. Perhaps it is to a metaphorical place.
Discovering this is of some relevance, in spite of the critics who have always considered him some kind of sorcerer. Poor Marsilio. My guess is that he has gone where others have been afraid to go.
He continued, combing his arched eyebrows in the mirror. Although he did not always agree with my versions, Barnard considered me the best translator in the entire faculty. He had been concentrating his studies on the De Fabula for some time, convinced that Ficino had only revealed it to Vespucci. Organized according to the plot of an allegorical novel, it differed from it mainly because the nameless protagonist was never confronted with a challenge. No stage, if survival in a confrontation could be considered such, was sanctioned by a triumph, because there was apparently no treasure or princess to save. A code fragmented by various clues, difficult to connect. An unfinished work, philological critics apostrophized it for years, shelving it along with other works considered of little value. But Barnard was not convinced of this. Ficino, he was fond of repeating, was aware of the linguistic mechanisms of the novel, having analyzed them from the first texts that appeared in the Hellenistic period: the hero, the prince, the predestined, the journey, the vicissitudes, the gift, the helper, as echoes of a remote past.
He has to find the red thread of this correspondence, and I am sure he will.
Barnard returned to press me a few days later.
Language wouldn't even exist if we didn't have the solutions to our wandering in mind,
he told me, continuing to stare at the tip of the fountain pen.
Doomed to curse is he who cannot find the words. He remains unknown not only to others, but also to himself. Do you agree?
He thundered as he gave a lecture in the lecture hall.
The history of civilizations starts with the discovery of writing. But would you contradict me if the peoples of the island of Samoa could be considered uncivilized because they were illiterate?
On that occasion, he invited me to come forward and asked in a loud voice, so that everyone could hear,
What do you think of illiterates, Dr. Baldi?
I don't know, Professor. Here, in the case of Samoa, there is an organized society,
Sit down and come to my office later.
he intimated. Whenever he summoned me in there, I often looked at my watch, for fear of lingering beyond 10 minutes in that sort of stomach-churning breathlessness.
I saw his latest translations.
He said. I did not breathe.
You still haven't managed to understand what Ficino meant by the phrase in aqua ad ostium perveni, ubi mors oritur.
These are initiate texts, Professor. Perhaps I'm not up to the mark.
I have chosen the best pupil for this task. He replied, piqued. I expected more courage from you, Carlo. Enclosed in the defabula is the fruit of a lifetime of research, which Ficino loved to share only with Vespucci. It is still on the epistolary that he must insist.
Well, come to think of it, I said, could the door in the water refer to the ancient Medici prisons that overlook the Arno?
The door to death and resurrection in spirit? I doubt it.
He paused for a few moments. I cleared my throat and continued. We linguists, we are more bookworms than you anthropologists out in the world. He abruptly snapped back.
Look at these pictures of the Altamira caves.
Did you take them? They are very well grained, I exclaimed.
There is dramatically told the story of the hero who is the bison, the priest, Eho is the man, and his tragic end after having victoriously ruled over creation. Human footprints are a cry for help in the face of catastrophe,
he murmured. The glaciation of 11,000 years ago? I asked.
Preceded by an earthquake. The entrance to the cave was blocked by huge boulders, but soon afterwards, frost fell over most of our hemisphere. The Earth was enveloped in clouds of gas that cooled its cap until a sudden thaw, about 1,500 years later, submerged many lands. The Sicilian Channel, for example, did not exist. The island was attached to Tunisia, like Great Britain to France. Well, I see you surprised Baldi. Had he never thought of that? The sea has concealed much of our history, our memory.
He paused as if to make sure I had understood.
You see, I am convinced that Galilee inflicted on Western thought a dagger from which it struggles to recover.
I don't understand. I did.
Man has emancipated himself from fatigue, but has limited the possibilities of other knowledge to himself.
Then his face lit up ominously and a shiver went up from my knees. To return to defabula, I still can't pinpoint the starting point, let alone the logic of the path. The only meaningful clue is that sentence in Latin in the epistolary. Excuse me, Professor Barnard, but perhaps we are trying to attribute a complexity to a text that it does not have. I resumed, but the professor replied nothing. It was not with a vain objection that the French professor would revise his positions. He was considered in academic circles to be a very eccentric intellectual, sometimes with shady undertones, and for a while he was removed from teaching, only to be called back at the beginning of 1967 to carry out research in the prestigious Florentine libraries, following the flood of the year before that had brought to light manuscripts believed lost. Barnard had commissioned me to collaborate with him because he had read an article of mine in the cultural magazine Savin earlier that year, in which I revealed the shadow of an elongated face with a mustache on the polyhedron of Melancholia I, an engraving by Dürer from 1513, a face very similar to that of the future Emperor Charles V.
Do you really think the Medici hired Ficino just to translate the classics from Greek and Latin, spending a fortune?
I remained silent and he continued.
Lorenzo was the needle of European politics in the 15th century. With him dead, the family's fate was sealed. I expected a different approach from you. I am quite disappointed, considering last year at Nuremberg.
A lucky guess.
Marsilio was also gifted with similar disdevelopment. We speak of a man who escaped death more than once.
he muttered without batting an eyelid. Mortified by that comparison, I decided to go and examine a copy of F. Itzino's most intimate work, hoping to find some more reference to those frightening tones used in the letter to Vespucci.